So what is a mixed-use property? I've had some people ask me this before because the term mixed use might get thrown around a lot, and some investors might wonder what does that actually mean, mixed use? So it actually is a kind of a generic term that doesn't have a definition of XYZ. So, like people use the term Airbnb to describe all short-term rentals. Mixed use is just kind of a general term to describe what may be a variety of different investment property types and not one specific thing. But generally, a mixed-use property is something that's maybe some commercial on the first level and then apartments up above it. That's the kind of general consensus that a mixed-use property might be. But it could also mean like you have a property that's got 30 storage units and then it's got an auto garage property and a car wash in front. So you could have properties that have like a whole combination of different things. And that could be a mixed-use property as well, just because there has to be some kind of definition for something like that. So there's a couple of benefits to mixed-use property. And the first one really is the diversity that you get when you have a variety of tenants. So if you have the example of the commercial on the first level, oftentimes commercial leases are multi-year with escalations built in. And if you have that, that can be a really nice thing to be able to rely on that versus apartment tenants that are going to turn over probably once every year or two and have tenants who maybe aren't as reliable at paying and things like that. So it can be a nice way to have some consistency of income and also some more recession-resistant activity. So if you have a restaurant on your first floor and they have a 5-year lease in place, there's a pretty good chance they're just going to stay and they're going to keep paying even if there's a downturn in the economy, whereas some of your apartment tenants might lose their job. And so it's nice to be able to have that diversity where you have different tenant mix to spread it out when you have good times in the economy as well as bad times in the economy as well. Some of the downside is the fact that they can be a little bit harder to finance just because it just takes a little more intelligence, so to speak, to review. So it's not just like, oh, we got 20 apartments at X and these are the lease terms. Because you got the apartment and you got your commercial and you have to kind of bundle that together. So sometimes lenders don't like it as much and it might be a little bit harder to finance as a result of that. And then you just have to make sure that you're taking consistent care under your property management because it could be maybe a little more diverse to manage because you have more diverse tenant mix. So it could be a little more challenging from the property management side as well. But, certainly I would say the benefits can outweigh the downside. But one word of caution, just make sure that your commercial spaces are in a good location and are leasable. So if you're looking at buying a mixed-use building and the commercial space doesn't currently have a tenant, make sure that you're considering the marketability of that. Has it been sitting vacant for years? Because if it has, there's a pretty good chance it's going to continue to be vacant. But if it has a great tenant in place with a nice long lease, then that's great. You're good to go, right? So just to be keeping in mind the leasability, that commercial space, because if you do have a restaurant tenant like in a downtown area and they don't have a lot of parking, sometimes that can be a challenge if you should need to release it in the future. So just kind of consider the dynamics of the commercial space and make sure you've got a good tenant or it's a very leasable space for the future. So those are a couple tips and tricks in the definition of a mixed-use property.